I am here to discuss the so-called flying saucers.
Fleet of them. Look on the ASA. My gosh. That's not LNS though, is it? It's not. It is LNS. Well, if there's anything.
We have spacecraft from another species.
We do, yeah.
How many?
Quite a number.
Unidentified Anomalous Podcast.
Ho, 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 ho! Ho, indeed, and welcome to episode 14, our Christmas edition. Do you like the little intro?
I didn't expect that ho 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 thing to happen. That was really, really, really funny. I really liked that a lot. Hey, happy holidays, Digby. Welcome back to the show, man. It's been a couple weeks since you were here.
Well, I
nice
got
to
older
have you here, man.
Since the last show. So
yeah, happy birthday!
Week.
Happy birthday, sir. I let everybody know that it was
again.
your birthday. I let everybody
21
know.
again.
21. Yeah,
40,
sure.
41.
Paul's already here. What's up, Paul? Of course, Paul's here. Of course, he would be.
Of course, Paul's here. Of course, Paul's here.
And Steve actually brought up something interesting. He said, "Good Trouble posted some amazing documents stretching back to 1953. I think amazing. Are these part of the Grush complaint to IG?" I said, I will have to look into that for sure. Yeah, it looks as though you are finally catching a podcast live. Welcome to the Unidentified Anomalous Podcast, everybody.
Welcome,
Happy holidays.
And yes, indeed. Merry Christmas, everybody. Tom, Merry Christmas to you.
Merry Christmas, sir.
Thank you for holding the fort for the last 2 weeks.
Sure,
week I had a power cut, and apparently in Spain, if you have more than 2 items switched on at the same time, the power goes out. I have my studio set up at the moment, as you can see, but to do that, all the heating is off downstairs. The oven is turned off. I probably turned off the fridge, and the washing machine definitely isn't working. So
you don't need that.
No. And things are only going to get better as in about a week and a half, I moved to Morocco. So hopefully I've literally been begging the woman there and making sure that the internet is working. It's a new place that they're setting up there. And she's like, "Oh, I'm getting the internet installed on Monday." And it's like, good. Before we book, I need to know what speed it is because I'm not
installed.
having any.
There's no internet installed there currently.
No, it's all been the place we're going to is all brand new, all being done.
And no, that makes sense. That makes sense.
So, look, this has all changed. We can now see people on X. That didn't happen before. So, everybody watching on X, welcome. Everybody on YouTube, lovely to see you all again.
Nice.
And also, this week, our first time ever, we are streaming on Rumble as well.
Yes,
so,
welcome to Rumble.
If you're watching on Rumble, welcome. I know there's a few people on there watching already, which is absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much. The reason why we've gone with Rumble as another streaming platform is because algorithms on YouTube don't really work very well in this subject, as I'm sure we all know. So we've moved it over to Rumble. It's monetized already, thankfully for us. So anybody watching on Rumble, it benefits myself and it benefits Tom, and in turn that will benefit the show. There's super chats open on Rumble, so if you go over there and you want to make a donation to the show, you can do. You can set up a super chat, or on Rumble, I believe they're called a rant. You can put a little slider across and you can choose how much you wish to donate. And you can also subscribe to us for $5 a month on Rumble as well. And that literally all of that will go into helping Tom and I spend more time producing the show, hopefully get Tom away from his soul-sucking day job. And we can really make something of this.
My body's tired, man. I got to be honest.
Yeah, I know, man. But your mind is awake and it's beautiful.
I appreciate you so much, Digby. obvious. So normally when we start the show, you and I talk about our week, but it's been a couple weeks since we've spoken. Let me fill you in on at least just the last couple days personally. Um, and I don't know if they watched. I don't think they're watching right now, but
Who, the
when I go
FBI?
back to no, 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 I know they're watching at this point. Not the FBI, but somebody
Oh,
else.
CIA, another three-letter agency.
Somebody,
Hello to
yeah.
everybody watching from a three-letter agency. I hope you're
Hello,
enjoying
U.S.
the show.
government. I
Yeah.
know
If
that
you'd
you're
like
out
to
there.
join in on the super chats, that would be
Like,
great.
yeah,
Thanks very much.
you want to sub, like just hit the button, hit the bell, so you know when we go live as well. Get notifications, all the things. So, no, I don't know if I'm going. When I go out and deliver at my job, there's a guy that I deliver with, but there's just some things going on, and when I go into work tomorrow, I don't know if he's going to be there anymore. Which means that we are if that's the case, we will be highly, highly understaffed. Like I am physically achy right now. Like my shoulders hurt. Um, we were moving. We had to bring up this giant, like a glider, recliner couch and love seat up into this apartment the other day, and like
Love seat.
when we got up there, dude, I don't know if I've ever truly experienced having to catch my breath like I did. Like I was I couldn't breathe for a couple seconds. Like I was so just like we went up like I want to say like 25 steps, and this each piece weighed about 195 pounds.
Yeah.
And so it was my boss on the bottom, and I'm walking it up the steps. Now, for those of you who don't know, I'm not a huge person. All right, I'm 5'5" and like 170 pounds.
Man, you're short.
I am. I am very good, actually.
I mean, because I only ever get to see the top half of you, you see. So it's
Yeah, no, I'm not. It's like small portion, big taste. As they yeah, no, I'm not very tall. So like I don't have like a massive wingspan, but I think it's I guess a testament to my physical abilities that I move furniture at my size for a living and do it successfully. But I'm tired. And I love this. I love what we do here, Digby. Like, I want to do this full time because if I didn't have this job, I got to be honest, man, I would probably do more than one episode of the show during the week.
Yeah, and so would I. And I think there's other content that we can create as well. And the idea for the show was never just to be just the show as well. We want to create an environment where people can communicate with each other, where we can disseminate information to the general public, where we can really be more than we're just doing at the moment. So, when we say, join in on the super chats, join in by subscribing or anything like that, it's because we want to provide you guys at home with more content. We want to be able to have the time to spend more time doing what we love. So any way that you can help the show, and if you can't join in on the super chats or subscribe, the best thing you can do is subscribe. Subscribe and share our content on Facebook, on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, and that really does help. So just help us get the show out there. Tom and I have been doing this for a few months now, actually. And it's gone from strength to strength, and we love doing the show, and we love all the regular faces that we see in the chats. We just love to get some more.
Feels good.
We've had it's been a great year for us, Tom. We've had some fantastic guests on. We've had Ronnie Vinay, we've had Dr. Michael Masters, we had Ashton on talking about his MH370 flights, and whatever you think about that, whatever, it doesn't matter. We've had some good guests on. We've had roundtables. We've got Sean Cahill, by the way, just so you know, and Hollywood are coming on the show in January as well. I've just been speaking to Holly today, so they're coming on in January.
Nanu.
That's going to indeed Nanu. Shameless plug there for Nanu.
I hope she sees that.
Yes, I hope she does too.
Got the name for it.
Yeah, it is. It is absolutely the way.
Oh, it's so good. All right, that's great. That's great.
So
I love that. Nanu.
They're coming on in January to talk about Nanu, and also so we can talk about generally the phenomenon.
I'm excited for Nanu.
Me too. I think it's going to be a great app. I can't wait. Hopefully, we get the ability to be some beta testers for them. That'd be
Holly. had commented at me on X the other day and was kind of alluding to that, I believe. So I'm really looking forward to helping out in any way that I can, and to have something like a tool like that at my disposal as a you know, a UFO researcher and whatnot, to be able to go outside the bounds of X and have something new and fresh to use aside from Reddit and all the other stuff.
Yeah.
It's really cool. I'm excited for it.
I completely get that as well, because, you know, especially, I mean, you and I both do the majority of our communicating on the subject with X, and it's great, but it can become a bit of a toxic hotbed at times, you know, and it's tiring sifting through. People need to become a bit more motivated and work on the same side. We're all aiming for the same thing, or supposed to be aiming for the same thing.
Digby, sir.
What?
Good segue, actually. I am currently in the process.
Is this a shameless plug?
Laying out, sort of, I guess, but it involves all of us. Hey, what's up, Vinny? Vinny Adams is in the chat. What's up, buddy?
Hey, Vinny.
Good to
Welcome,
see you, man.
Vinny.
Good to see you, buddy. Appreciate that. Love Vinny, dude. Vinny, I mean, he's one of the best out here. He's one of the best UFO researchers and voices in our community. So it's really cool to see him here.
It is really cool to see
We've done a
him.
roundtable with
Brit.
him. And, yeah, it is a Brit, right? And I was the only American that one time, the lone Yankee. Yeah, no, what a guy, man. Like, just, and he's just so friendly, and that it's just, you know what I mean? Because I was a fan of his, and when you meet somebody that you're a fan of, you know, sometimes it's like, you don't know what's gonna happen when you actually interact with that person, and he very, very much exceeded my expectations as a human.
Yeah.
So shout out to Vinny. So
Vinny's a great guy.
I am in the process of laying out and
carry on.
revamping my Discord server. I built the Discord with Zio. You know Zio, my buddy. And he helped build most of it, actually, because he already knew a lot about Discord, so he gave me a hand with that a couple of years ago. And, you know, it was mainly suited towards what my channel was at that time, which I was just streaming games, honestly. I was just playing Battlefront, and I was running my whole YouTube channel off of a cell phone and a PlayStation. So it's like, you know, but there's a lot of UFO and related subjects content on there. There's links, there's files, there's images, there's art, there's little blurbs that I've typed up. And I'm now in Mello's Discord server as well. So when I was in the space with him and Maze last night, I had said, you know, maybe we should try to figure out a way to kind of, you know, combine our forces here. So I was thinking if we could all have another place to meet where you could go and things are not just like out in the public. Discord is perfect for that. Plus, you have the live voice chat. Everybody can be on camera. I can even record that. That can be content, and anyone can be involved in that. So it like goes beyond spaces, actually. So I'm going to be revamping my server to be more suited for UAPOD and the current Cortex Zero channel, and in the form that it's in now. And you know, once everything's nice and tidy, I would love to see everybody here join that, whether it's Vinny, Paul, Sandy, you, Andrew, Janice, whoever, anybody. Like, I want to get as many of our good friends from the UFO community on there so we can stay informed with one another. When news drops, you know, it's right there and everybody knows what's going on at all times, but it's not necessarily just like out in the open like it is on X, where someone could come in and be like, you guys are idiots. Like, it's just for us. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah,
that'd be pretty cool idea.
It's great. It's a great idea. So we've forgotten to mention the highlight of today's show, of course, which I'm sure you can tell by the title of this week's episode, but we have got the amazing Steve Bassett joining us in about 15 minutes. So if you're watching live, please make sure that you write in the comments, especially when he comes on. If you've got any questions that you want to ask him, write in the rants on Rumble, write on YouTube, on X. I think we can get the comments that come on X now. I tell you what, if anybody's watching on X, can you just do us a favor and put a comment down, and then we'll see if our comments are coming up on our live stream here, because it looks like they do now, but they didn't before. So if you could someone just send us a little chat message on X and see if that works, that would be absolutely fantastic. And then we can put your questions to Steve Bassett. And I think this is actually probably the most perfect time to have Steve on the show, really, because with everything that's going on in Congress and with the government in the US, and I mean, as a Brit, I'd be honest with you, it's mind-boggling. I feel like the last 6 months of me has been me doing a crash course in US politics. So having somebody like Steve on the show live for you guys to talk to as well directly is a fantastic opportunity at such a pivotal time, when we can really get some information out of somebody that really knows his stuff. So
absolutely.
you know, please do get involved. If you've got questions you want to ask him, then absolutely fine, and just put them up in the messages and we'll get them out. But otherwise, we've got some other segments to the show that we're going to do. We've got some conversations to have later on the show. We're going to save that till after Steve comes on. We don't really want to rush.
Absolutely.
We don't want to rush Steve, so we're just going to be very fluid today. And
It's just a conversation to start things off. You know, the past couple weeks, you know, obviously you haven't been here, but I know, you know, we share things every day with each other.
I've not been here, but I did go to a nudist beach, and that was a first.
Yeah, that's funny, man. Like, I think I was at work when you told me that, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, you were doing what now?
Yeah.
I was like, was it liberating?
It was definitely. I enjoyed it. I'd do it again.
I'd do it. I mean, why not, right? You only live once.
I mean, it's mainly old men there, but you know, you're not there to look at everybody else, are you?
I don't know if I'm saying your name right in the chat over on Rumble. Janes, that's the way it's at least spelled, says Stephen Greer went after Elizondo recently, waiting for a rebuttal from Lou soon. He said Tucker's also on Rumble, but you need to get David Grush or Lou on here as they start doing their social media rounds. Yeah, no question. I would love to get all of these gentlemen on. So now when I was at work yesterday, you and Paul were listening in on the space with Stephen Greer. Why don't you touch on that a little bit?
So look, I mean, no disrespect to Stephen Greer, and I think anybody that's watching this will say the same thing. Stephen Greer has a wealth of knowledge, but it's all in the past. You know, he knows what he's talking about, and no disrespect to the man for that. But he just talks about the same stuff. And people last night in this chat were trying to get him to comment on more current things, and he just reverts back to the stuff that he knows. I request to be a speaker, but I didn't get it. But I wasn't surprised because all the people that were speakers had like 2.5 million followers, whatever. It would be nice that when people do these spaces that they let average people have a swing at the bat. But, you know, it didn't happen last night. But somebody did bring up the question about the arguments between him and Lou and what's his name for Blink 182? My brain's gone blank. Excuse me. But again, he wouldn't answer the question directly. He would just divert and change the subject to something completely else. So I was hoping for a really good space with Stephen Greer yesterday, but it was just much of the same, and I find it really frustrating, and I think that's why
it is.
He's become, for somebody who was such a strong voice in the field. Sorry, there's a fly buzzing around me. He's kind of become irrelevant, which is kind of shocking.
You think that's why he was getting so hot-headed yesterday? Apparently.
Thank you, Paul. Tom DeLong, thank you. Yeah, I think so. Well, he also got really frustrated very quickly when he was in conversation with somebody, and you know, like you and I do, we throw a conversation backwards and forwards, and sometimes we interrupt each other, and we're terrible for it. But no harm is meant by it. It's just when you're in the throes of a conversation and you're excited, and there's backwards and forwards and everything like that.
Yeah.
And he would get pretty shirty about the fact that somebody had interrupted him. You know, and it was just like, you don't need to do this. You don't need to be this way, you know. And at one point, he even turned around and going, I'm the one here being interviewed. Give me the time to speak. And it's just like, hang on, you're not on an interview. You're in a space. It's a conversation, you know. Yes, everybody can be cordial to each other, but, you know, just calm it a little bit.
I've been interrupted many times in spaces, and there was only one time where I even got anywhere near that because someone was like blatantly doing it repeatedly, and that's when I was like, "Hey, man, do you mind if I finish?" You know, and again, because I'm not trying to get into arguments with people, but it almost sounds like he doesn't necessarily realize what spaces are supposed to be. You know what I mean? Because it's supposed to be an involved conversation with everybody in the room that wants to participate in that way. You can do
Yeah.
an interview with somebody there, but it's meant to be, more of an open forum. Like if you had, say, two people on television speaking, and then they went to audience questions. Like it's supposed to function
Yeah.
like that in the least. Oh no, it sounded like it sounds like he's just frustrated in general. And again, if I had the opportunity to go in there, there's some things that I would have liked to have pressed him on, but just based on what you're telling me, I don't think that he would have allowed that, and I probably would have gotten kiboshed pretty quick. I think they probably would have booted me, honestly, and I would have done it from a place of respect, but I have honest questions.
And people should be allowed to ask honest questions. And if you doubt something that somebody said, you should be able to question them on it. And that's not to say that you're aggressively disagreeing with them or aggressively questioning them. It's just like, I've got an honest question for you. Can you educate me? Can you expand on it? There's nothing wrong with that. But it wasn't like that last night, and I found that frustrating because actually I think it would have been a great opportunity. Greer is not in the limelight as much as he used to be. He doesn't do as many shows. I mean, God, I've reached out to him for this show and for another show that I did, and you get the same answer. Come back to me when you got 1 million views on an episode. And it's like, come on, man.
That should tell you a lot, right? You know what I mean? Like, if someone that I've found to be kind and compassionate and genuinely interested in this topic came to me with 5 subscribers and said, "Hey man, would you be on an episode of my show?" The answer is yes. Whether it's 5, 50, 50 million, it's about the person I'm interacting with. You know what I mean? Like we want to do this full time, so obviously there's a monetary aspect of that, but
yeah, absolutely.
I want to connect with as many people as possible, and I don't care how big their channel is. There's a couple people that I watch on YouTube regularly that have less subscribers than me, and I'm like a devoted fan of their content.
Yeah.
And because it's not about, I don't care about how many subs you have or how many views you have. I care about what I'm hearing. I care about who you are. That's all that matters to me. And I don't think based on that, I guess Greer has different priorities, unfortunately, and they don't necessarily align with mine.
Yeah. Well, look, we're not here to bash Stephen Greer. I'm sure he's
I'm not at all.
guy,
No. He's a smart guy.
I'm not either. Yeah, and he's a smart guy.
He's a medical doctor.
Exactly.
Got to be smart to do what he was doing. Absolutely. He's a very, very smart guy.
We can't deny what he's done for the field, and so we'll leave it at that. But I wish that I'd had the opportunity to speak to him. Fringe has joined us. Hi, Fringe. She's watching us on X. Steve Valance.
Fringe is so great.
I went on once, cold water and naked, not a great look. Yeah. It was icy, I felt like
that episode of Seinfeld.
I went back through puberty, and anyway, I'll leave that to your imagination.
It's like episode where on Seinfeld where George was getting changed and he had just gotten swimming, and the one chick sees him with his towel off, and he's like, "It's just shrinkage." Oh man, that's funny. So, there was something I wanted to ask you. So, how many of the interviews over the last couple of weeks have you seen? I mean, because there was Jesse Michaels did one with Pasulka. They released the full interview between Ross Coulthart and Gary Nolan, and then obviously later on we're going to be talking about the Tucker Carlson bit with Brush and his appearance on Redacted. Mm-hmm. How much of this media have you caught?
So, I mean, I've literally the last couple of weeks, I've had a bit of time away from it, trying to be spending some more time with the family, but I did
Nothing wrong with that.
I caught the whole interview with David Grush on Tucker Carlson, and I thought that was great. I think it was a great interview. It was an hour long. It was to the point. There wasn't too much fudge around the edges. I mean, the Joe Rogan one was great, but you know, the Tucker Carlson one is really getting down to the nitty gritty, and the whole conversation is pretty much about that, which was great. I thought it was fantastic. And actually, you know, I have to say that, you know, speaking as a Brit who isn't exposed to US media in that way, like news broadcasting, as much as obviously you are, from afar, I was never much a fan of Tucker Carlson in the past. But I have to say, in the last 6 months, he's gone right up in my respect levels. I have a lot of time for him. He's done some good interviews, and I thought that his interview with David Grush was on point. And my God, you know, he believes. I mean, he came into that interview strong. It was the US government is lying to us. There is NHI, extraterrestrials are out there, you know, to the point, you know, and that was within 12 hours that had been seen by 2.5 million people.
Yeah,
12 hours.
you gotta wonder, you know, there wasn't some sort of preconceived agenda behind that, and I don't mean that negatively either. I mean, they're pushing the conversation forward by doing things like that. You know, one of the things that really just hit me hard this week was a specific statement that Tucker had made when he was. I want to bring it up now, honestly. At least this particular quote. He was on Redacted, and to have someone as well known in the world of journalism as Tucker is, you know, obviously people have their opinions of him, but this is not meant to be political. We are solely focusing on the UFO phenomenon disclosure issue here. This quote is fascinating. He said, and I quote, "This is, I think, established, and I feel comfortable saying this is fact. The U.S. government," and then he says, "I mean, these are real. Whatever they are, they're not human, and the government has known that for a long time, possibly going back to the 1930s at least." Like, that's the type of quote you would expect from, you know, Richard Dolan, or, you know what I mean? Like, other people out here. That came from Tucker Carlson, of all people. Yep. That's remarkable with how many eyes he has on him. So, you know, you have, Grush, that he came on Rogan.
Yep.
Then he's on Tucker. Like, and now he's got this op-ed that's coming, which is really obviously highly anticipated. You know, obviously we're gonna wait for Steve to really dive into the current state of the UAPDA, you know, the Schumer Amendment and all that. But because that isn't seemingly going in the exact direction that was, you know, at least intended from the people that wrote it up, the other side, our side of the fence, has decided to, you know, I suppose, take matters into their own hands. It's like, here's the deal. Like, I think even Sheehan was saying this. Either you pass this so we can do this properly, lawfully, legally, and officially in a way, you know, that's mature, or we are going to start leaking. You have two options, you know, take your pick. And it appears that they did take their pick, and now things are going to get really interesting. So,
well, I mean, that's something to put to Steve when he comes on, which hopefully should be in the next couple of minutes. Yeah, are we heading for catastrophic disclosure? And also, what is so catastrophic about a catastrophic disclosure? I mean, the information needs to come out, I suppose. Does it matter which way it comes out? I don't know. I
want to point out something that Sandy just said, because I agree with this. Needed more female voices in the discussion.
Agreed.
If it weren't for some technical issues, we would have had our first female guest last week, and we are going to get her on. Paige Fox, who's absolutely wonderful. She and I have become really, really good friends. We text pretty often, and we would Fringe. I know you're watching. You're always welcome on this show. Always.
Absolutely.
Fringe is like a distant sister to me at this point. I mean, she's just such a wonderful person with an incredible story to tell. So, and Sandy, God, I'm sure you know a thing or two. You're always here, so you're invited as well. So, without further ado, though, I believe Mr. Bassett has joined us.
So I have.
Steve, welcome, my friend. How are you, sir?
I am fine on this wonderful Sunday.
Indeed.
Steve, pleasure to meet you. Thank you for coming on the show.
Digby. If I'll follow you on Twitter, and feel free to subscribe to my email if you're not already doing that on my website.
Absolutely, I will. Thank you so much for coming on.
I got to point out too, the poster behind you, 2010. That movie is underrated. I love 2010. That is such a good film, actually. Really fantastic.
Absolutely. Of course, the first one. I mean, it's tough to follow that one, but that is about. It says contact, right? It's essentially contact. It is a contact movie. And for that reason, it has a place in my heart.
I have to agree with you there. It's such a wonderful film, and I've read all the books too. Arthur C. Clarke, one of my favorites. Steve, there's a lot going on right now in Washington, in the world. I think what we should do is start with the current state of the UAPDA, the Schumer Amendment. What is going on with that right now?
Well, what's going on is something we have waited decades for. Major politicians are, how would you say, in opposition, debating and trying to get something. And what they're debating, and have been now for the last couple of weeks, is whether or not, essentially, the defense contractors that have been working on crashed and obtained extraterrestrial vehicles, whether or not they're going to have full control over profiting from that technology, or whether the government will claim it an eminent domain. Now, some people, particularly that are new to this, like the Gen Zers, are probably thinking, well, that happens all the time, doesn't it? No. Yeah. So you've got one of the most powerful men in Congress, a member of the Gang of Eight, Chuck Schumer, essentially standing up with two other members of the Gang of Eight, House Intel Committee Chair Turner and House Armed Services Chair Rogers, right? And they're fighting over whether or not the government contractors can have full benefit of the extraterrestrial technology, which is a given in the discussion. I mean, I've been in this 26 years. We've never been within anywhere near something like this.
Yeah.
This has all come together in 3 years. And so couple that with the fact that David Grush essentially informally confirmed the extraterrestrial presence in his interview with Coulthard, informally confirmed it again in his testimony under oath before the House Oversight Subcommittee, has confirmed it again in several more interviews. All right. Remember, she's still around, still interviewing him, and nobody in the Defense Department has said, no, the man is not telling the truth.
Yeah, quite.
Okay. And then, of course, that Schumer introduces what amounts to the ultimate bill that essentially takes this as far as you could want it to go. That is where we are now. And the only thing that remains is the president confirming this. And the reason the president can't confirm it is that Grush's testimony and that 1.5 a day hearing is not enough. We need the full hearing, Senate intel, 10, 15, 20 witnesses, every one as powerful as Grush. That will be sufficient for the president to passively step forward and say, hey, I get it. We're not alone. And boy, we're going to be getting a lot of information to you. That needs to happen as soon as possible. So that's where we are. Now, in terms of the moment, what Chuck Schumer just played some serious chess. And politics at that level is chess. All right. A lot of it goes on behind the scenes you'll never learn about, maybe later in a memoir. Some of it goes on in public. But it's a chess game nevertheless. And like in chess, no matter how good you are, if you're playing against a very good player, at any time they make a move you don't expect. And if you can't adjust to that and alter your game plan, you're going to lose that game. Well, in the chess game that's being played now really seriously for the last 3 years, which is, I like to describe, a 4-player game, and you can actually buy one of those. 4 players, same number of pieces, bigger board, everybody's competing against each other. It's chaos, cats and dogs living together. It's wild. So this is a 4-dimensional, 4-player chess game, not to be confused with 4D chess. 1 player is the White House, 1 player is the Congress, 1 player is the military intelligence complex, and the 4th player is the American people in jointly with American journalism, which in fact is now on our side. I mean, they've crossed over, folks. Trust me, I got 15,000 articles on my website. I'm going to hit 1,900 this year. That's triage from 4,000. This is basically professional press coverage. And of those 1,900 articles, there might be 6 debunking or silly pieces. So the press is now on our side. So that's the game being played. And the move that caught people by surprise essentially came from the military intelligence player, David Grush. He was not supposed to come forward as a whistleblower. When I say that, it wasn't in the script. It wasn't what they wanted. On the other hand, they knew he might, and that was playing out behind the scenes for 2 years. And we know quite a bit about it. Danny Sheehan has certainly looked into it pretty closely. We have a pretty good idea what was going on, plus what he said. And so 2 years was going on, and he was trying to do his job, but he was having problems. And so ultimately, because there was no way that the government, through the IG office, Inspector General office, or under whatever witness protection legislation there is, and there is some in the third NDA bill, they couldn't stop the threats. I mean, if somebody wants to threaten you, you can't stop them.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you want to get a restraining order against somebody? See how well that works.
Yeah, quite.
They can slide them under your door at night. You know, get this letter, and it says, "I'm going to kill you, the wife, the cat, and the dog." There's just no way. He's getting these threats, and finally he had enough, and he did what they hoped he wouldn't do, but didn't stop. He said, "I want my story out." He wisely went to Leslie Kean and Ralph Blumenthal. Excellent choice. They tried to get it in a mainstream outlet, but that legacy media, for a story of this magnitude, they need a lot of time to talk to a lot of lawyers before they can put that up. And he didn't have that kind of time. And so it went out on the debrief and Ross Coulthart interview on News Nation, and boom, it hits like a bomb on June the 5th. This is the move, and that was not expected by the congressional player. Now, the congressional player is a combination of many people, but it includes a very powerful person named Chuck Schumer. Now, Schumer had stayed out of all this for 3 years. It was all Intel committee. It was all Rubio, Warner, Gillibrand. All of the Intel members actually signed, I think, a couple of letters, all of them, to Arrow and to the White House, I believe, essentially along the lines of, let's move on, let's get this done, let's get the truth out, whatever. So Schumer had stayed out of it because he is a political person. He is the Senate majority leader, the leader of the Democrats, not the Republicans. And so you don't, and everybody understands you don't want to politicize this issue, right? And there's been plenty of statements to that effect, which is very true and very important. However, when Grush comes forward on June 5 and confirms non-human technology and bodies, a lot of people forget about the bodies. Whoa, what do you do, right? What are you going to do? So Grush holds up because what he was saying was the truth. And so weeks go by. Actually, 39 days goes by. And during that 39 days, what we've learned is Chuck Schumer got together with another member of Congress, not on the Intel committee, like a Rounds, and they came up with an additional fifth, well, in terms of single-spaced like PDF file, which is what I've converted the bill to, the UAP Disclosure Act. It's 31 pages, single-spaced. And if you go to my website, Paradigm Research Group, I have that PDF file. You can hit it and go read the whole damn thing. I have even highlighted some interesting parts. He puts another 50 pages in. Okay, because the original language was modest, and what he puts in that bill is basically a response, a brilliant response to the unexpected move in this chess game by Grush. And this is what he chose to do. He said, look, I'm not going to deny this. I'm going to embrace it. I'm not going to equivocate. I'm going to now throw the long bomb. In other words, he's saying enough of this short passes to the to out passes. I'm throwing to the end zone. Now, will the ball get caught? Will it be a touchdown? Don't know. Doesn't matter. In football, just throwing one into the end zone definitely shakes up the defense, and they have to adjust. And so what he did was he said, here's the amendment we want. Here's the act, rather, not an amendment. We want to set up a complete program to bring everything in the government out to the American people over a period of time. Everything, from the deepest programs, all the files, the works. Furthermore, anything older than 25 years, meaning anything that was started or signed more than 25 years ago, that's fast-tracked, meaning that's going to get in play right away, right?
And sorry, Steve, that's still in the NDAA, isn't it? That part, the 25 years part, is still in there.
But what people are misinterpreting that, because he made an unfortunate reference to the model of the JFK bill. It doesn't mean that we actually have to wait 25 years for something to happen last month. It just means that older than 25 is fast track. Still has to go through this fairly well-described control process and could still be postponed based upon certain, and it has to be provided. They have to provide the reasons, they have to provide a report. It's all very well done, very carefully done, but it's fast-tracked. But if something happened a month ago and they wanted to let it come through the review process, it would come through. So that's a misunderstanding people have. I want to clear that up now. So he says that. They describe the whole process. And the whole process includes a 9-person review board appointed by the president with subpoena power and a classification level as high as you can get, meaning there is nowhere, no place, no document that they cannot see if they want to see it. A number of committee people on key committees that will also be part of the review process, and they will have subpoena power, and they will have the highest classification. All right. He puts in an eminent domain clause, which was the fundamental response to Grush. So he and this was the one that got all the attention. And by the way, there have been scores of articles. Eminent domain, meaning in this bill, if it passes, the government of the United States asserts eminent domain over any non-human tech or bodies in the hands of any private entity, corporation, or personal. Eminent domain means that if we want to get it, we will get it. It doesn't mean we will get it. It just means we have the right to get it. But so we can make that decision. You have, I think, 300 days to provide a full report describing what you have. All right. So, boy, that was like bada boom, bada bang. I mean, that was huge. Now, this move was genius for several reasons. One, by doing that, he confirms Grush.
Yeah.
The Senate Majority Leader is not going to put an eminent domain clause in a major bill claiming eminent domain over non-human tech if there's no non-human tech. And so he just confirmed it. Right? Okay?
That's it.
And he's also backed up Grudge. In other words, whoever is out there pissing on Grudge, he basically said, go piss somewhere else, because Grush is obviously telling the truth. So he does that. He lets the Senate know, at least publicly. It doesn't mean privately he hasn't told. He lets the Senate Intel Committee know, I'm publicly standing up for you. I'm a Senate Majority Leader. I'm good. Right on. You go, gals and guys. Okay? So he did that. All right? But the third thing he did, again, this is chess at the highest level. Almost certainly he knew that some or all of the major provisions, the review board, high classification status, the subpoena power, and the eminent domain, were not going to make it through that bill. Possibly none of it. Okay? However, the idea that they'd pull the whole bill. No. And if they tried to pull the bill, they had something to bargain with. Like, we're not, you can't pull this bill, but let's talk about the eminent domain. Let's talk about this or whatever. Okay. So he puts this in here, and he can't lose. If for whatever reason the opposition feels that it's pointless to try to, in other words, the truth embargo is a dead policy walking. They know it. Its days are numbered. They know it. And they may just say, look, let's just keep our mouth shut and let it go. If that happens, well, this legislation is massive. And it just makes the Senate Intel Committee's job of holding a hearing and the president's job of confirming a lot easier. But if they push back, he wins too, particularly if they push back hard. Why? Because what happened is that two groups of people pushed back on this bill. One were hardline national security people that never want the truth embargo to end, and they don't want us to ever know about the ET presence, at least while they're alive on this earth. That's one group. And I don't think that was the strongest group. The other group were the defense contractors, who are legion. And the defense contractors all have one thing in common. They give millions and millions of donations to the campaigns of members of Congress. And they favor the Republicans, not exclusively, but the Republicans get more of that money than the Dems. And so what they did was they go to their intermediaries, because they can't come out themselves, right? They go to the intermediaries and they say, look, you need to get in touch with every one of the designated conferees, the ones that are going to be in there debating this language between the House and Senate, and let them know we want that stuff out of this bill. Now, in order to do that, they have to also get support from the power, all right? And so who are they going to go to? Well, Schumer's off the table. So they went to the obviously logical place. They got in touch with Turner and Rogers, the Republican chairs of the Intel and Armed Services Committee of the House. Why? Because of the members of Congress that get campaign donations from the Military Intelligence Conference. Contractors. These two gentlemen are well funded. All right.
Yes.
So they're putting pressure on them. And so these guys start the pushback, and we get wind of that. Okay. But it's pretty well defined. All right. Pretty well defined. We know what's going on here. And the public is getting concerned, a little riled up. How well it might have gone and how the bill might have ended up, we'll never know if this had not happened. And this I'm referring to is that at some point, somebody else jumped into this. And that gentleman was Mitch McConnell. All right. McConnell, the ranking member of the Senate, right? Minority leader, he decides to get involved. Exactly why is not clear. It could have been for both reasons. It could have been that he felt that those enforcement measures were unacceptable. He could have also felt that national security required the truth embargo last forever, but whatever. And while he could put some pressure on the senators, certainly the Republican senators, right? Certainly any Republicans that are going to be in the committee conference room, he went further. He went over to the House and he talked to the three Miketeers, Mike Rogers, Mike Turner, Mike Johnson, and basically let them know we don't want that stuff in this bill. Now, right. These are the three of the most powerful Republicans in the House, obviously, the majority leader and the two Senate, the two House chairmen. And so with that much power, they were able to strip all of the enforcement portions of the bill out completely. And so a loss? No, because what the result of that is that now they've outed themselves, and the contractors have outed themselves. In other words,
yeah, it's a mission of guilt. I mean, if there wasn't anything for them to hide, then why are they so aggressively fighting back on it? I mean,
showing their hand at that point.
If you're playing a game of poker, they've just lost.
And the idea that they would get all of that and get the bill completely out was out of the question. There's already been 3 bills, and so they still have a bill. Now it's only 11 pages long. And the PDF file of that is up on my website, paradigmresearchgroup.org, to the right. So you can read both. And it's easier to read because the way I've done it. You can read both and you compare. Now, that bill, the new bill, the final bill, is 11 pages. So it's about less than a third the size of the other one. But the important thing about it, when you read it, is this. The fundamental essence of the original UAP Act is there. The basic thing is there. We're going to get all the stuff from the secret world. We're going to bring it through, and what gets cleared and what doesn't, and then eventually ends up in the archives. They clearly, in the language, were leaning very much toward, if we want to postpone it, we're going to postpone it. Meaning, under this bill or this approach, we're going to very much emphasize postponing everything. Okay, but nevertheless, the essence is all there. All that's missing is the enforcement ability. All right. Mm-hmm. So essentially, we've got what we want. We've got a fourth bill that takes the thing further. But where does that leave us? Where does Chuck Schumer's brilliant chess move ultimately leave us? Right here. 1, 4 tranches of legislation. ET Tech and ET bodies is now informally confirmed by the United States government and the defense contractors. Okay. The Congress is in recess and they come back in early January. Plenty of witnesses have already been interviewed in advance. Though some of them, I'm told, they had to pay their own airfare at hotels, which is a disgrace, but whatever. And been interviewed for hearings in front of the Senate Intel Committee. They could start a hearing on January the 3rd. All you have to do is send them an air ticket, book them a hotel room, bring them out, and boom. And so we're all set up now for a hearing in front of the Intel Committee that Gillibrand promised months ago. And that hearing will not be a half day in the morning with 3 witnesses. Mm-hmm. That hearing should last at least a week, morning and afternoon sessions. That's 10 sessions, probably averaging 2 witnesses a session. So that's 20 witnesses. And every one of those witnesses will be at the level of Grush or higher. And the testimony they will give will blow the truth embargo to bits. And so at the end of that week, the president will be in the position that I've been talking about forever, in a way to passively, non-politically come forward and say, hey, I've seen it, you've seen it, we've all seen it. Clearly, we're not alone. I'm confirming that today. You want to know more? We've got the legislation ready, blah, 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 blah. And the post-disclosure world begins. And after that, in the immediate aftermath, and where the entire world has just been informed, in most cases by their own head of state, not just ours, that we're not alone. We've got tech, we've got bodies. We're in that world. Chuck Schumer and the Senate is going to submit probably the entire UAP bill intact, exactly as it was written, back in standalone bill. And now the Congress is going to have to try to strip the enforcement powers out of that bill in the post-disclosure world. They're going to have to say, well, no, yeah, there's ETs here and everything else, but we don't want subpoena, we don't want that, and we want the contractors to make gazillions of dollars. Mm-hmm. No, that bill runs right through. That's the chess move that was made by Schumer. That's where we are right now. The only thing left, the next step, is the Senate Intel hearings, and that's what I'm working on at this time.
Steve, speaking as a Brit who has basically had to take a crash course in US politics over the last 6 months, I can honestly say that's the best explanation I've had, and people are also saying that in the chat as well. And it's really good to hear it explained in that way. But also, not only that, it's really good to hear somebody still incredibly passionate about it and still being able to speak to it with such excitement and passion, because let's face it, if you're on Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it, there's a lot of doom and gloom. Oh, it's been stripped, it's in the bin, we're not going to get anything that we want. But hearing you explain it in that way, and that sort of 4-player chess game, and looking at the pieces moving into places you've described them, it certainly, even right now, fills me with an awful lot of hope that until this point was pretty much gone when it came to the NDAA. And because a lot of people have been talking about catastrophic disclosure, whatever that may be, but it's really refreshing to hear you speak like that. And I've also heard from other sources as well that there potentially is something on the cards for January. Whether it will be January or not, we'll see. But can you speak to something? Do you have any information? Can you speak towards the sort of caliber of witnesses that we've got coming forwards, some loose background? You say that they're going to be Grush-like or better. Do you think that we've got people with first-hand experience coming forwards?
I know some of it. I know that witnesses are coming forward. A lot of witnesses are coming forward. And let me emphasize, witnesses are coming forward, not whistleblowers. Okay?
Right. Okay,
People
fine. Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, get over this whistleblower thing, for God's sake. All right? They're not whistleblowers. If they come forward, give an interview and say, I'm a whistleblower, the whole government is corrupt and I'm spilling the beans and I'm getting death threats, fine. They're a whistleblower. But until they do that, they're just witnesses. People don't understand what it means to be a whistleblower at that level. The government, it's not what you want. You don't want to be that. Recently, Grush has been giving several interviews. Joe Rogan, I think he was on Tucker Carlson again. And he's stating, I've been through hell, right? I've been through hell, even though he seems to be doing pretty well. So it's witnesses. Tons of them come forward. They got lots. Here is, just to give you a taste, what I believe. I think for sure they're going to bring in a number of witnesses regarding the nuclear weapons tampering. Yeah. If they don't, I'm going to raise holy hell, and I won't be the only one. They've been waiting 25 years to testify under oath. They were able to testify under oath at my citizen hearing on disclosure, but that was a mock congressional hearing, and that was 10 years ago. And several of them have died off. But there will be former SAC base officers that will talk about their firsthand experience when our missiles were shut off by craft hovering over their damn base. That's pretty good. Grush will testify. Some pilots maybe. But what I have heard is that some of the people that had been interviewed includes the two individuals in the USAP, the Unacknowledged Special Access Program, dealing with the non-human technology that gave Grush that information, which he then went to his intelligence contacts that he's built over years working in Intel and various entities to say, do you know about this? And a number of them confirmed it to him, which is the reason he went. It wasn't just two people, secondhand testimony. He got it confirmed by a number of other people in the intelligence community that he knew. And that's what he went to I believe, to the Intel committee. Those individuals that were in the program firsthand, I believe, have been interviewed and could very well show up in front of that hearing. If they bring pictures of the technology, that would be powerful. Yeah. They could spend an entire day showing nothing but 8 solid hours of gun camera footage. Not that short stuff, but the good stuff. 20-minute videos of substantial engagement of extraordinary craft. They could do that if they wanted to. I don't think they have to, right? And so I'm just saying that when I say Grush or better, I am not kidding. And almost every one of them will be military. And people say, well, if they're military, then they're probably going to lie because they're in the part of the military intelligence complex. No, here's what it means to be a military witness. 1, you took an oath when you joined up to serve your country, like Grush did, 2 tours in Iraq. A lot of the people bitching at him wouldn't get near Iraq. So that's one thing. And the second thing, a military person has a fully defined, vetted career. They know everything they've done, what they've been, where they've been, the jobs they've had. A lot of the civilians, it's not so obvious. And so they have a fully vetted career. They know exactly what they've done, who they are. They've taken an oath. And then they sit down and they stand up and take another oath before Congress and probably, I don't know, 100 million people watching. You don't get better witnesses than that. No. And so and most of these witnesses, maybe all, will be exactly that. Military, retired in most cases, might be a couple of active people. The guys in the USAP programs may show up still active. I can't overemphasize that the Senate Intel Committee, without question, has the ability to blow the truth embargo, 76 years old, to smithereens. There will be nothing left of it. And as a result, it will, that hearing ends on Friday. It'll be a race to see which head of state confirms the ET presence first. And I hope to God it is ours.
Well, yes, quite. or the UK, I'll be happy with that too. But that won't
right,
happen
of course you
because,
will.
Here's,
Of course
here's,
you will.
here's to Sunnit. God knows he's a good guy. I like Sunnit.
Well, yeah, he's a bit wet though. But look, I mean, Steve, let's face it. At this point, there's an awful lot of people coming to this subject that haven't taken it seriously in the past, or maybe gave it no attention in the past. But it's starting to hit mainstream news. And there are naysayers out there that say, yeah, but this happens every 5 years. Or all of a sudden the UFO subject comes up again and everybody's saying, oh, it's next year, it's next year. Now, Tom and I, we're on your side. But what would you say to those people that are out there that are going, yeah, but this is just this subject coming around again? Because we need to get people on side. So what would you say to those people?
Yeah, well, we need to get people on side, but I'm not going to talk them into it. I'm not going to argue them into it.
Sure.
I'm just going to tell them, look, the train is boarding now. Okay. If you get on early, you're going to get to be in the deluxe dining car, the special service, right?
Tom, that's what we're in.
Trout, almond bean, or whatever
Right.
the hell, all the drinks you want, and we're going to party our way into the post-disclosure world, or you can stay on the platform and wave us goodbye. It's that simple.
Steve, I'll just explain. I am drinking now because for me it's 7:30, so it's acceptable. So excuse me.
Well,
I will raise a drink to that.
This is iced tea, but let's drink to that. It's okay.
Not Long Island, I hope. Sorry, I'm in Spain. You may not know, but I'm currently in Spain. So I'm traveling around the world with my family at the moment. We're on the first leg of our trip, so we're in Spain at the moment.
Very nice.
And I saw your article that you did with the guys over here in Spain the other day. Yeah, fantastic. I was sending them a message earlier. Actually, I'd like to have their input on the show at some point. But we're heading off to Morocco soon, in a couple of weeks. So that's why I'm in a completely different time zone to you. But I mean, you said you've been in this for 26 years. This must be the most exciting point. You've worked on this for 26 years. How does it feel for you to be at this point, knowing that we are literally on the cusp of getting all the answers out into the public that you've been fighting for so long?
It is a two-edged sword. Of course, I am thrilled to be this close. I'm also incredibly tired. Mm-hmm. And I knew that as we got close, everybody is naturally going to be trying to do everything they can do to engage it and be involved. And so I helped launch the Hollywood Disclosure Association with Don Harari back in November. And that's a newborn baby, and trying to make sure that that's going to be okay. It's been very stressful. I'm averaging 4.5 to 5 hours of interviews every day. I've also launched this shift, which I don't think I've talked about it yet, the shift storm, which we need to talk about. I'm broke. I'm $50,000 in debt. I've never been more stressed in my life. I mean, this is not unusual. I mean, we're talking about the biggest shift in the history of the human race, and now everybody's getting involved, and now's the chance to do it, and whatever. And if you have limitations, problems, or whatever, you're literally going to be like this. I just went to a conference in Mexico. It had problems. Great people, wonderful people. I met some, but it had problems. It was very stressful. I couldn't sleep. It took me 23 hours to get back from Mexico City to Washington. Then I had to go into a board meeting. I was so fried. I didn't know what the hell I was doing. Now everybody's mad at me because of that, because I didn't handle myself well. And I'm saying I'm a wreck, by the way. And I had COVID in late October.
Oh, man. For
the first time after 4 years of not getting it, I got COVID. I had to deal with that. So again, it's a mixed blessing. I mean, I'm not complaining. I'm trying to be honest.
Yeah, do be honest. It's refreshing.
The people that think that, I've got colleagues that have been in this for 50 years. 50 years. And people say, oh, well, Matt, this is celebration time. You must be thrilled. You have a birthday party. No. When you have worked this long to get something done and now it's coming to the end, things only get more complicated, more intense, more demanding, and you've got to service it. And because of the nature of the truth embargo, one of its goals was to make sure that by the time this came, everybody in the field would be bankrupt.
Yeah.
If not a nervous wreck or dying from heart disease, of which 3 of my colleagues are. One just recently tried to kill herself. So I want to be clear. We're not there yet. And the people involved in this are not now going to ride the golden sleigh into history. You got to get behind us. We need your support. We need your financing. We need you to cooperate, because this is not necessarily over, because the human race is hell bent on doing what it does, which is slaughter anything in its path, blow anything up it can, and hold endless wars.
The problem with that,
have a nuke event in Ukraine tomorrow. China could infringe on Taiwan. There's a massive slaughter going on in the Darfur. There's another slaughter going on down in Yemen. And of course, we have the 2,000-year-old war in the Middle East is just flared up again. And Hamas has declared war on every American in the planet. So, you're talking about, hey, we're almost at the promised land. No, we're not. The Egyptian chariots are right behind us, and we're trying to part the Red Sea here. And if we don't part it soon enough, they're going to kill us all. And so we got to get this done. And that's the stress that I'm feeling. And let me tell you, it is definitely taking its toll, because I am not a young chicken.
Steve, I completely understand what you're saying, and I feel for you. And also, I think that once we get to the point where more information comes out, there's going to be more demand for yourself and people like you to come out and speak and educate people. So you're tired, and your battle, in a sense, the last 26 years has been the warm-up for you. And I feel for you in that, because people are going to demand, well, not demand, but you're going to be requested an awful lot more in the future from a lot of people that don't have the knowledge, the insight that you do. And also, you mentioned that point about, I'm just going to touch on this quickly because of about mankind and wars and everything like that. And we hear that a lot, and it really upsets me that mankind is portrayed in that way, because I purely believe that mankind in itself, us, the general public, the everyday people, are good, loving, caring, responsible people.
That is
and
true.
Unfortunately, we are represented by people all over the world that say that they speak for us and then force us to fight their wars, force us to fight their battles in their name. And it's not what we, the people, want. And one of the key things that I hope that comes out of disclosure is that the realization that we are not alone will be the single thing that actually helps unite humanity and stops these wars, stops these atrocities, stops our governments acting the way that they are.
Yeah, that is true. I mean, I've said the same thing. I unite humanity, maybe a little too strong. What I have said is this: it's going to create a worldview change that will ripple around the planet and will affect the worldview of everybody to some degree or another, and it opens some possibilities. Another metaphor I like to use is that for as long as you go back in history, there have been a lot of doors that mankind would like to go through. And if we could go through that door, there's some things on the other side that we could possibly do, and it would be very helpful. We can't get through them. We beat on them. We kick them. We try different keys. We can't get through them. Those doors are locked to us. But guess what? Disclosure is like the master key that the maintenance guy has that allows him or her to get in every one of the 1,000 apartments in the apartment complex, right? Because they can't have 1,000 keys. They've got a master key. And the disclosure event is a master key to 1,000 doors that we can't get through now. And suddenly we'll have the key to that door, and we can go through and see what's on the other side. And quote, getting along better. And that's one of those things. But another door leads to another perspective, which is actually, I think, more direct. And it goes like this. There's 200 countries and sovereign territories in the world, representing 8 billion people. Every one of them has a head of state. Of those 200 head of states, at any given time, around 20 are seriously disturbed human beings. Corrupt, evil, megalomaniacal, mentally ill, pick one or all, seriously disturbed people. And because they are morally absolutely degraded, they have a very large spectrum of things they can do to get to the top. And they use that and they get to the top. About 20. Now, 8 billion people divided by 20 is 2 into 800 million, which is 400 million. that means that each of these 20 dictator asshole jerks is outnumbered 400 million to 1.
Nailed it.
And so what I'm suggesting is this. In a post-disclosure world, we might be able to come to some sort of agreement on a large scale through perhaps a reinvigorated UN where they restructure it. It has to be restructured. It's not designed right now. It's designed for the Cold War, and give it more influence, more power, whatever, as a basis for agreements. And we come to the agreement, and here's what we're going to do. We're going to be very carefully monitoring the leadership paths of people in these 200 countries. And when a lunatic, idiot, fool, morally corrupt, evil, totally awful human being starts to make it up, we pick them off. We just say, sorry, you're going to have to come out of line. All right? And you may say, well, that means going to war. No, it doesn't. Under a different way of thinking, with some understandings, we can all agree nobody wants to be ruled by such a person. And so let's all agree that one way or another, they're going to be taken out of line. And so we end up with a world in which none of such individuals are running any country anywhere. Now, that seems like a lot, but we're only talking about 20 or so at any given time. Right? Now, there was a time years long ago where you had a king with absolute power. And once he died, his crazy son took over and he had absolute power. And there wasn't much you could do about it. That's not the world we live in now. And so that thing alone, think of how that changes things, because you made it correct. That the history of the human race is one very disturbed human being after another getting power, forcing millions of young men to join an army, whether they want to or not, to go out and slaughter people. And the more people you slaughter, the more likely they call you the Great.
Yep.
Alexander was called the Great because he killed so many. Genghis Khan has a vast, huge metal sculpture in the Mongolian desert because he killed more than probably any person on earth individually. And I can go down the line. Greatness is virtually directly connected to how many people can you kill in order to build the empire that is your legacy in the future. That has been our history for 12,000 years. Now that needs to change. And the first thing you got to do is get rid of the amoral, narcissistic, crazy lunatics that are able to get in power because there's nothing they won't do to get there. They're not hard to find. We need to get them before they get in power, not after they launch a world war like Hitler or like Mussolini, and then have them either kill themselves or hang them up by their toes and set them on fire. After they destroyed is not when you want to get them. You got to get them on the way up. Germany put Hitler in prison because he was part of a coup where people died, and then they let him out. Okay, so that's bad. In other words, I want to in a post-disclosure world, live in a world where Hitler never gets back out of jail.
No, God.
This is all I'm saying.
You're so right, Steve. I was just thinking about something. I'm not sure if you're familiar. You probably are. Matt Ford, who runs the Good Trouble show on YouTube.
I've heard of the Good Trouble show. I'd like to be on it.
I think I could probably hook you guys up. We've been DMing a little bit here and there, and Matt's doing incredible work. Obviously, that big article that he did with Josh Boswell and Christopher Sharp from Liberation Times. There's something I wanted to ask you because it was something that Matt and I briefly spoke about, and I'm curious if this is something that has happened to you. It's actually happened to a number of people that I've been speaking to recently. Matt had been talking about the fact that, he wasn't necessarily super involved in this subject, and that when he became involved, he began having experiences with the phenomenon. He and his wife specifically, I believe, have been seeing orbs outside of their house, and there's a number of other people. I was talking about this when I was running this show last week on my own, about how many different people that I've communicated with recently that have either been very direct about that or have at least alluded to it. Have you ever experienced anything like that? And do you know anybody else that has?
Me? Nada.
Yeah. Nothing, huh?
Zilch.
Have you ever
Nada,
seen a
zilch,
UFO?
Chavot. 9, nothing. Okay.
Really?
I don't know. I mean, would it shock me? No. I think a more likely explanation is once somebody gets in the issue, they start paying attention more, and so they
That's
start
fair.
seeing
Yeah.
things they weren't even noticing. But I wouldn't rule it out. The ETs can do whatever they want, go wherever they want, and there's plenty of examples of what we'll call soft intervention. All right.
Yeah.
Turning the nukes off, I call it soft intervention. Blowing up the base would be hard intervention. Okay. Landing near schoolyards and getting out, and then the kids naturally come over to see what's going on, and then putting images in these children's minds, reflecting the destruction that is heading our way if we don't change our ways, which then sticks with them the rest of their life. There have been many instances of that, more than just
Yes.
the 2 that are well known. And then giving similar images to people that they're abducting or taken. Again, this is soft intervention. Maybe, I'm sure that some people have had some sightings that were intentional. CE5s are all about going out and actually directly interacting with them, and apparently they do show up. That's soft
I've done
intervention.
it. Right? I had an experience around Halloween with another person that was utterly bizarre. I had malfunctions in my electronics, and we actually saw something that I wouldn't have made up. Like, if I was going to tell you a fake CE5 story or conjure up some sort of tale, this is not the type of thing I would have described. It was like a blurry cylinder that was moving across a trail in the woods, and it went up into the trees, and then there were I've been seeing these orbs of light hovering like at treetop level, and you can tell it's not a flashlight. Like, no one's that tall, you know. Like, so there's some portion of this that is so mysterious, but I feel that it's tied in some way to consciousness, and I feel like consciousness is going to be one of the next big dominoes to fall, so to speak, in a post-disclosure world. Like, people are going to start thinking about that topic in a different light. I don't know how you view that particular subject. I feel that it comes from outside of human beings, that it's like non-local. But I'm curious, do you feel that in a post-disclosure situation that when enough people are now on the same wavelength and they realize what's going on, do you think that may potentially cause some sort of event, like a massive spike in sightings, a mass sighting? Because there's instances of this that have been reported in history where people got turned on to this subject, and next thing you know, they're seeing it.
Again, I can't, there's no way to assess that. As I say, the most logical thing is that they're paying attention more. But look, the ETs are part of this. I guess you could, but it's the metaphor kind of breaks down. But you could make this a 5-person chess game, 5 players, in which the ETs are one of the players. Or you could say that we have 4 players on the 2-dimensional board. The ETs are playing from above. And
I like that.
Moves too, okay? So
I like that.
They're part of this. There's no question. And we wouldn't be where we are today if the ETs had not done a great deal of a lot of the things that they've done over the last 20 years had not happened. In other words, they have helped us get here. Now, we could argue forever about what they did or didn't do and why, but there's no question in mind that they have been participating in this process that is leading somewhere. All right. This is not in ancient times. I think they certainly engaged human beings in ancient times. Yes. But in those times, they could come, they could go, they could do whatever the hell they wanted. They could be much more open. And everyone just thought they were gods. I mean, it was like if you wanted to have some God time, maybe take a month off, be a god, you just come to the planet Earth, hang out, everybody worship like a god, then you go home, go back to your work.
It's the way I look at it sometimes.
Yeah. But this is not now. The modern era is that starting in 1900, we entered the modern era of technological exponential growth and population growth. And at the beginning of that century, 1900, if the people that, and there were people and there were futurists who I think kind of could project the options that were available to us. Even then, that's their job. If they had been able to see clearly enough and get the message across, in 1900, the human race was on the threshold of creating an unbelievable planet, because we had 1.5 or so billion people, and we were about to enter into a technological curve that was going to provide the means to take care of every single one of them, and provide a pretty good life for them. And we were going to be able to generate substantial financial growth based purely on the evolution of technology. But again, the futurists may have figured that out, but they had to convince the leaders. And of course, we had ex-leaders of nations who, frankly, shouldn't have been allowed to run an ice cream shop or something. I mean, they're just sick human beings. And so what happened was, instead of doing what was necessary to manage the population in an appropriate way, take advantage of the technological evolution to be able to take care of ourselves and not infringe too much on the planet, over the next 123 years, all of the nations of the world spent, I'm trying to get a number on this, eventually I'll get it, but I'm going to park it at around 300 trillion. They spent about $300 trillion, not on food, clothing, and shelter, on war, weapons, bases, military, intelligence, technology, and of course blowing things up and having to pay to build it up again. About $300 trillion over that century, and then the population went from 1.5 to 8 billion people. And of course, we can't take care of the 8 billion because we spent 300 trillion on war and destruction. And so guess what? It didn't work out very well. But we had that opportunity. That was 1900. And so as that century is moving forward, the ETs, of course, are paying attention. And they're thinking, well, I wonder where they're going to go here. What's going to happen? You know, I mean, relativity gets developed in early 1900s. That was a big step. Wow.
Huge.
What's relativity? Big step. And they're going, whoa, that's impressive. Okay. And so they're seeing our science really starting to take off and getting sophisticated. And they were probably projecting out where we would cross certain technological thresholds or science thresholds. And then, you know, wars had been kind of okay, but they really weren't big enough. And so we needed World War I. And so off we go. We make one of the worst, awful, ugliest, most disgusting, muddy, hellish wars of all time. And they saw that. And they're going, well, okay, well, that's not a good use of your resources or your humans or your men or whatever. But yeah, maybe that'll be the war to end all wars, which is what it was called. And that war ended. And it didn't take long for the usual maniacs to get in charge of things, and the way we dealt with it afterwards and so forth. And everybody bunkered up and needed to increase their militaries because they were a little twitchy after that war. And it only took from 18 to 39 to start World War II, which was really impressive. And I think the ETs noted that. Oh boy, this is impressive. I mean, you're taking all that incredible technological curve you're on, and you're making more and more incredible weapons. Boom, 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 boom. I mean, now you got hordes of airplanes flying, bombs falling. I mean, it's very impressive. And they watch that and they go, well, you know, maybe this will get it out of your system. But as that war was approaching its end, a lot of our scientists figured out, and there was already a substantial amount of intel, that Germany was trying to figure out how to convert nuclear science into bombs. Russia was toying with it. Even the Japanese were kind of looking at it, and they decided, well, that's not going to happen. And we lost the Manhattan Project, one of the most amazing, incredible projects of all time. I mean, it's very impressive, very, very, very impressive. Extremely. And the ETs watch that, and they're going, okay, very good, okay. Going to develop nuclear bombs. We know about those, absolutely. So they're watching us. How far are you going to go? And so they watch us do, you know, get together and come up with the tech and come up with the idea, and then they watch us test one. Well, okay, you tested it. It works. Now what are you going to do? And then comes one of the most fateful decisions in the history of the human race, only because of the ET issue. But we'll take the ET issue out. It's not such a big deal. But and the fateful decision was this. A number of the Manhattan scientists sent correspondence to Truman. I think they even met with him. Some of them met with him, pretty sure.
Yeah.
Making the case, don't drop the bomb on people. Or at minimum, do not drop the bomb on civilians. Find some total military target, whatever the hell, drop it there. But preferably, if you're going to use it at all, drop it offshore, drop it in Tokyo Bay, drop it in a way that it will not kill innocent people. And, well, you know the decision we made. The hardcore, the LeMays, the MacArthurs, and others, hardcore military people who still hadn't gotten over Pearl Harbor, a little pissed about that, said, you know, eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. And so, no, we're dropping them. We're going to drop them on 2 cities. Well, actually, one city, they had to change course, and they dropped it on a second one because the Japanese didn't surrender immediately. And so we vaporized 220,000 civilians, most of which were women and children. And that ET saw that. And that was a turning point, a massive turning point, because if I'm an extraterrestrial and I see a species drop nuclear bombs on its own species and vaporize women and children, I am now fully convinced that that species is as dangerous as it gets, right? Maybe the most dangerous species within 2,000 light years. And we're going to have to deal with this. We're going to have to engage these crazy lunatics because they, having been there and done that, they understand technological trends. They understand how computers are going to come about. They understand how rocket science comes about. They understand how the learning of this world, the science of this world gets dealt with. And so they kind of knew where we were going to go. Where were we going to go? We learned how to fly, and we were going to learn how to go from star to star. It's simply a matter of understanding how to manipulate space-time in a way that you can move without moving. And that's physics is out there now. It's all over the friggin' internet. You don't have to go anywhere. It's there. We're close on having starships. So if you're a species and you've just seen another species vaporize 200,000 of its own species, innocent civilians, and you know they're going to have starships in 50, 60 years, you're going to get real serious about...
You've got to jump on it soon.
Are you following me here? Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let's look at the historical record. So right after Trinity, and certainly right after Hiroshima, sightings started happening. Lots of them. And we don't know the full extent because we didn't have who had the cameras? Where were the newspapers? Where were the networks? Where was the internet? No. So, but there were I'm sure for everyone that got reported, it was probably 100 or 200. So there's lots of sightings going on, more than we fully know. And that continues all through 46. The government's aware of it, but what are they going to do? I mean, they won the war. They've got plenty to do. To keep them. And so they got, hey, the Foo Fighters, they're still around. Let's keep an eye on that. And so fine. And then in 47, possibly because there was so much activity, something was going to go wrong, right? It's like on the freeway. The reason you have accidents, you put 1 million cars out there, somebody's going to run into something. And so a crashed vehicle turns up in our hands in 47. Point number one, the ETs didn't come and get it. And they didn't come and get the bodies. Could they? I think they could have, but they didn't. They let us have those bodies in that craft. And that is in 47. Okay, fine. And so now we know that they're here. We have the tangible proof. And maybe the reason the ETs let us have that proof because they thought, well, if you've got bodies and you've got a saucer, I think you'll probably acknowledge our presence. That would be the logical thing to do, wouldn't it? You're just going to tell everybody, which is what the press release was about. The Roswell Army Base put out a press release saying, we got one of those craft because it seemed like the thing to do, except there were others that disagreed with that kind of thing, right? And so it didn't get really out. It got contained, locked down, and the embargo informally begins. And they watched that. And over the next 5 years, the sightings continued to increase, still nothing happening. And so they said, okay, guys, look, you're not getting the message here, right? we're going to make it a little clearer to you. And so in July of 52, they start flying over the Capitol for days. They're just flying around, right? They're being
There's footage of it.
You know what I'm saying? They're flying around. They go, and people, oh my God. And so the government's all upset. They give a press release, they're giving these press conferences and so forth. Well, you know, and they're and so okay, this will do it. I think this will definitely do it. So Eisenhower will probably, well, it could have been Truman, but he was already committed. But when Eisenhower took over in January of 53, yeah, he could have disclosed. He knew. He didn't, right? Instead, they put together the Robertson panel, which was all CIA, and they concluded, as we all know, and this is very important, a lot of people forget this, they didn't conclude these things are an incredible threat, and we can't let people know about that incredible threat because they'll get upset. That's not what the Robertson panel concluded. It concluded that the phenomena was not a threat, but the people's interest in this non-threat was a threat somehow to our national security, and therefore it must be embargoed. And so that's 53, all right? And we still haven't gotten the message. And so the ETs are watching us go forward between 53 and 62, building nuclear weapons and missiles, submarine, the whole 9 yards. We're really going full out on this, right? We're going to have another war. It's going to be nuclear. But, you know, what can we do? It's who we are. That's what we do. And they're watching this. And then in 62, we nearly have a nuclear war, right? We have the Cuban Missile Crisis. It goes on for 13 days. Everybody watched it if you were alive then. And believe me, it was concerning. And everybody was thinking, you know, if John Kennedy and his brother don't handle this well, we're all going to die. And they did. They handled it very well. Later, though, we learned that we were far closer to a nuclear war. There were two things that could have tripped it, and it didn't. We came that close. That was 1962. And then, right, just 4 years later, suddenly, for whatever reason, ET started hovering over our ICBM bases and turning the missiles off. Not once, not twice, but a number of times. You think those two things aren't connected? And they still haven't gotten the message. All right, now let's go turn their nuclear weapons off and see if they get the message there. Okay. And so they did it, and they did it, and they did it. And we go, you know, you turn them off, we turn them on. So what the hell? Let's keep going. And so that we kept the nuclear arms race underway, kept it going. And by 1986, there was 86,000 nuclear weapons in the world, tens of thousands on potential launch. 9 countries, I think 8, eventually 9 countries had some. And so now, well, I mean, they're looking down and going, boy, you people are screwed. I mean, you are really, really screwed. Okay. And so now it's 1980s. Okay. The Cold War ends in 91.
Yeah.
And that's the first real window of opportunity to maybe rethink this. And guess what? Some people tried. Lawrence Rockefeller was one of them. He was ready to go to either Bush or Clinton immediately after they were elected and say, look, let's get these files out. Let's get this information out. The Cold War is over. Looks like the Soviet Union is going to go capitalist. They've outlawed the Communist Party. We won. Now it's time for an era of peace, and probably a good time to maybe disclose the ET presence. But Clinton won, and Clinton was the wrong president for that. And so that effort had no chance, but they did try. Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton and John Podesta tried. George Stephanopoulos fled, but whatever. Become a journalist, and he's never touched the issue since. Interesting.
That's true.
Way to act as a journalist, but whatever. The point is they tried. No chance in hell. The DOD laughed in his face, lied to him, spent millions of dollars on a report regarding a mogul balloon, and basically really pissed him and his wife off. That's what happened in that period from 93 to 96. He gives up. They're afraid he's going to probably spill the beans or do something because now he's a lame duck. So they work even harder and finally take him down, essentially neutralizing with Monica Lewinsky. But still nothing. So now it's the year 2000. We are starting, at that point, we are restarting the Cold War. We have been in Cold War II for the last 23 years, in case anybody is paying attention.
Yeah, quite.
The only difference is there's less nukes. But we papped off at 25,000. which is about 8 to 10 times what's necessary to create a global nuclear war that brings half the human race to an end and destroys most of the infrastructure, so most of the rest will die later. And so that's where we are. And so, where is this going to go next? Well,
this is what I was just about to ask you, because we're in a very similar situation at the moment. The NATO is advancing closer towards Russia. There's a lot of tensions there. The German Chancellor has asked for emergency powers in the last week. Everything's kind of starting to stink a little bit here, like we're on the verge of something that could turn very nasty, very, very quickly.
Really?
We're on the verge. Let me tell you, nuclear war is a nuclear event, meaning that somebody's going to use a nuke in a war-like situation or a theater, which means that's a nuclear war. I mean, in other words, if a single nuclear shell is launched in Ukraine from either side, that is nuclear war in Europe, and that puts Europe in DEFCON 1. Right now, Europe has been in DEFCON 2 for 2 years.
Yeah.
Yep.
We're in DEFCON 3 here, but we'll immediately go to DEFCON 2. And the question is, will it spread?
Yeah.
But the idea that a nuke's going to get used somewhere, you can almost count on it. And the one that I'm most worried about, which is now in play again, because the 2,000-year endless feud between two groups of people in the Middle East is now just exploded again.
Yep.
Hamas just put out a statement that every American in the world is now a target. And so, okay, all right, so I'm anticipating a big-time terrorist event. But, let's face it.
I'm in a small town in Spain at the moment, just outside La Herradura in the southern tip of Spain. And my wife went out today with the kids. They went into town while I was prepping for the show today, and she went to buy a Christmas tree. And there was a pro-Palestinian rally going all through the centre of town. Everywhere was cornered off by police. And that's in a small town in Spain. There's been activism all over the world, pro-Israel, pro-Palestinian. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter. Let me rephrase that. It doesn't not matter what's going on in Israel and Palestine, but it bleeds through. There's immigration that's spread throughout the world. So there is influences from people from these countries embedded in countries all around the world. So what is happening there has the ability to explode all over the world in a way that we haven't really seen before, because people take it upon themselves.
We did see it before. 9/11.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, I agree. But from an American perspective,
absolutely. We've been there. Okay.
But
now, if they're going to do something else, they got to top that. I mean, you got to top that.
That's so frightening.
That's the bar. Okay, that's the bar. And the one way you top it is nuclear.
Yeah, that's true.
Now, there have been a number of movies about this. There's been a number of books about this. Some of All Fears. You got it. Day after the day after destruction. Whatever the hell. The point is that look, I'm going to take a wild guess that, given the fact we had 86,000 nukes in the mid '80s, and now we're down to 20,000, and a whole bunch of countries had to give up nukes and so forth and so forth. And that was a massively complex process that took decades. I'm just going to take a wild guess that we really don't have a full accounting of every single nuclear device. And that some of them have kind of gotten off to the side.
There's an awful lot of missing money, isn't there?
Yeah. And so the idea of a non-state operator nuclear event, which is not like a tactical nuclear shell being fired in the Ukraine. This is something in a van driven down to the center of a city somewhere.
A dirty
goes off, takes out the center of that city. That's a different thing, isn't it? That's 911 cubed.
Yeah, it is.
It is definitely possible. Everybody's talked about it. It's not unusual. There's one other problem. We can't be certain there aren't nuclear weapons in space. And by that, I mean nuclear bombs. Yeah. We can't be certain.
Yeah.
Because they can. If you launch a satellite, how do you know what's in it? So if you've got a shielded weapon up there, we don't know that. And we can't. All we know is there's a satellite up there launched by some country. And they've said it's this or they've said it's that. It's not like...
We also don't know the capabilities of directed energy weapons as they stand.
Well, without even getting into that, let's just stick with the nukes. Nukes is enough, right?
That's enough to worry about on our pre-Christmas show.
Right.
The Chinese, we fly surveillance balloons over. Everybody's flying surveillance balloons over each other, but they're usually at 80,000 feet, and they just go over and they can't cause a problem. We all get it. We all spy on each other. But this balloon, one of the balloons sprung a leak and dropped down into the air traffic. And what the hell are you going to do? They had to shoot it down. The Chinese said it was a weather balloon. We know differently. That irritated me. Biden made the mistake of, using that as an opportunity to call Xi Jinping a dictator. Not a good move, but whatever. That's a balloon. But you launch a satellite, right? You say it's a surveillance satellite, or you say it's this or that. Unless we have the ability to detect the presence of a nuclear weapon in a shielded satellite, then you have no idea what's in it. And that brings up the question of an EMT. If you can put a nuke in orbit, then all you have to do is bring that thing down out of orbit pretty quickly and launch an EMP device across the United States. That's bad. A former Secretary of Defense about 8 years ago, for whatever reason, trying to help, and there have been a number of people in our government, particularly in the military, that have tried to get the EMP issue out there. Unfortunately, it's so uncomfortable that most of the politicians don't see any, how would you say, campaign benefit from going there. But the statement he made was simple. He said the right size EMP event over the United States will take out our infrastructure, our electronic infrastructure. And in the first year afterwards, half of the people of the United States will die. That's a pretty strong statement. And so why am I saying all this? I'm saying all this because there is a connection between the extraterrestrial activity and intentions and their behavior and our behavior with respect to nukes and war. And it's all heading somewhere, right? This is not just some, casual thing like, yeah, we're hanging around, see what you're going to do. Who knows? No. It's about the nukes. And it's about the nukes in two ways. One, apparently they're not thrilled with the idea of us destroying ourselves with nukes, which is a good thing. That means they have a certain empathy for other sentient beings. Okay, I like that. It's good. Okay. You don't turn off somebody's nukes if you could give a crap whether they use them or not. And so, okay, there's that. Okay. But there's something else, right? And it's this. When you have seen a species drop two nukes on their own species and vaporize them, when you've seen them build 80,000 of these things and threaten to use them against each other, and then you are aware just of your understanding of the evolution of technological scientific understanding, and you're pretty clear that well before the end of this century, we're going to have our own starships. And you know full well we're going to load them up with nukes, because who the hell's going to go out into space if they haven't got some nukes? I mean, you don't know what you're going to run into. Even Star Trek and Roddenberry with his wonderful Galactic Federation concept and Star Trek and all those wonderful ideas, those ships were loaded with weapons. And they ended up shooting each other all the time. And so they're going to say, well, look, you guys are going to get the nukes on you're going to fly on out. And that's not acceptable. I mean, you want to nuke yourselves? What can we do? But if you're going to bring nukes out and cause problems for us, worse, there's other civilizations out there that are not starfaring. They're more like us hundreds of years ago. Yeah. And so we're going to show up these crazy humans that'll kill and slaughter anything that they see, kind of cruising around with the nukes and go, we may do something stupid. And so they have to deal with that. And so starting with that event in Nagasaki and Hiroshima, we have been heading precisely for where we are right now, which is we have got to confirm their presence, because apparently they don't need to yet to force that on us. We don't have starships yet. We have to confirm their presence. And once we've done that, we're going to then educate ourselves and get up to speed on all of this as a global civilization, meaning, okay, great. Some people will be worried, some will not be. And after about 2 years of that, open contact. We've been heading for open contact. What now and why? Because of the nukes, not because they just feel like having open contact. There is a reason for this. This is not just casual. And open contact leads to what? A discussion about the nukes, the ones they kept turning off. And what's the discussion going to be? It's going to be, are you going to get rid of them or not? And some of us are going to say, oh, no. you will take those nukes from my dead, dying hands. I mean, that's we're never going to give those up. And where is that going to go? I'm speculating it's going to go fine. You can keep the nukes, but you're not leaving the solar system. Don't even think about it. You're not even leaving the planet with any of those ships.
That may very well happen.
They'll never get off the ground. We'll just blow them up. We'll melt them down. Whatever the hell. You're not going anywhere with nukes. We're not idiots out here. We're not fools. And so, okay, well, we're quarantined. Yeah, you're quarantined. Well, screw you, right? Fine. We're not going to go anywhere, but we're going to keep our nukes because we just love them. We can't live without them. They're just the ultimate weapon. We spent all of these thousands of years getting to them. When we went through the crossbow and the cannons and whatever, and now we've got the nukes. This is a summum bonum, and then we're working on antimatter weapons, and we are. Okay, we are weapons, antimatter weapons, and so no, and they'll say fine, keep the nukes, but guess what? There's a lot of ways we could help you. You got big problems down there. We've been there, done that. We can help you out a lot, but we're not going to help you if you're going to keep the nukes. Why should we invest our time in a society that is hell-bent on destroying itself? So, destroy yourself. We'll come back in 1,000 years, see how things are going, if there's any of you left. That's the kind of discussion, I think, where this is going. And people say, well, why even consider it? Why even conjecture it? Because it's very possible, and it cuts to the fundamental issue we're facing today. How do 8 billion people living on a planet where at least 20 of the heads of states are full-blown nutcases, right, loaded with nuclear weapons, have a future? You know how many people, particularly in the developed countries, and this has been polled, have made the decision to not have children because they assume that they will not have a future, therefore why put them through it? I mean, this is not something talked about because, hell, that's not going to get you any votes. Politicians are not about that kind of discussion, but that's exactly what's happening.
Well, I mean, even you look at the birth rate statistics in the US right now, you need to, I think it's 2.2 birth rate to provide a sustainable society. And without immigration, the US is at 1.6 at the moment. So that would mean that the birth rate without immigration in the US, people aren't having enough kids to sustain an older generation. Japan will be gone in 100 years. They're at 1.2.
Wait a minute. I've heard this, right? We're not having enough kids to sustain an older generation, okay? But what about the 1.5, probably in terms of full black money, trillion we spend every year on the military? In other words, what we're really saying is we have to keep having more kids so we can have more armies. In other words,
also what I'm saying is that people are afraid to have children now because of the life that they're putting kids in. I know people that are older that will say, if I was your age now, I wouldn't have kids because of the world that they could grow up in. And that's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, but let's separate this.
Yeah.
The point that I was making is that for a lot in the more developed world, where you have relatively high proportion of intelligent and well-educated people, they're doing the math and they're realizing that, like, we're headed to hell, and I don't want to have kids that have to live through the hell that we're it's the Walking Dead. That and so they're not having kids. Now, then in comes from the side this counter argument, or not counter argument, but this perspective. Oh my God, the smart people are not having kids, and if they don't have kids, then we're not going to be able to take care of the elderly. The reason they're not having kids is because of the world they see coming. And the world they see coming is not about not being able to take care of the elderly.
Yeah, I agree.
We can take care of the elderly if we can shift the money from trillions of dollars going to satisfy the Cold War and the endless arms races that we run. Mm-hmm. Then we can take care of the elderly. And so these arguments are bogus. And they are virtually serving the status quo that we've been living for thousands of years. Post-disclosure, these questions are going to come up. Think tanks are going to address them in depth. Danny Sheehan has already started one called the New Paradigm Institute. He finally got some funding. He's going to get millions more. It is a post-disclosure think tank going to address all of the things that we're discussing. there are other think tanks coming together. So many, I can't keep track of them. One of them is called SOUL. It is a think tank addressing scientific and technology issues in the post-disclosure world. It's not about the pre-disclosure world. That's about to end.
It's all happening at once, Steve. They're jockeying for position, right?
And
That's
what was
fine.
interesting about Seoul was how many heads of three-letter agencies were at that convention.
Absolutely. And all of the current think tanks, the big ones, Enterprise Institute, the Cato Institute, the what's the other one? And then, of course, the Center for American Progress. And there are many others. You can be sure that they are internally already trying to decide how they're going to deal with the post-disclosure world. They're going to set up a division, whatever. They're going to set up a whole new subsidiary. I don't know. But believe me, they're going to do it because the post-disclosure world is think tank heaven. I mean, there's never been a better time to have a think tank than the post-disclosure world. And so all these think tanks are going to be addressing the issues that I'm discussing right now. Only right now, there are people that are going to hear this and think I'm out of my frigging mind. And in the post-disclosure world, they're going to be signing up to these think tanks to get their emails. Yeah. All right. I'm an activist. My job as an activist is to be ahead of the curve and take all the arrows and whatever.
Well, you certainly are that.
Yeah.
You are ahead of the curve. You are.
This is the larger picture. And I think that Schumer and these guys are very smart and they get that picture. They understand that picture. And so the question is, can they execute what has to be done? Which brings me to the shift storm. Don't forget the F. Shiftstorm.org. That's the website. It's all on my social media. Got it all up there. I got it on all the stuff. You can find.
We'll put it in the chat and up on the banner at the bottom for people.
And so, what is the shift storm? Very simple. It's a tweet storm. Plus, all right. Tweet storms have been done in the past. I've done one myself. I say myself with a group of people from social media, mostly Facebook. When I was making my maneuver to engage the 2016 election and Hillary Clinton, knowing all of the connections between her and her people and the ET issue, I did this. I got a mock hearing done produced a mock hearing called the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure, and then the plan was to deliver that record to every member of Congress as the campaign began, which in this particular campaign started 2 years ahead of time. It started in early 2015. The election would be in November of 16. And so I knew exactly what to do. And so we delivered a full set of the Citizen Hearing on Disclosure testimony, 30 hours, DVD sets to every single members of Congress, every single office, 535. But ahead of that, we conducted a tweet storm. And the tweet storm was this. Bombard them with we ended up about 2 million tweets. Bombard all 535 with roughly about 2 million tweets, basically saying, this is coming. Get ready to deal with and review this 30-hour record of this mock congressional hearing. That's a tweet storm. Yeah, it pissed a lot of people off. A lot of people got blocked. Who cares? That was then. This is different. This is a much more refined and less disruptive use of that concept. And so here is what I'm asking people to do. And it's so easy. It's just wonderful. If you're on Twitter, meaning if you're one of the billion people on Twitter, anywhere in the world, and you would like to see the truth embargo ended, which means you want to see the president confirm it, which means we need to have the hearings in the Senate, and we need them immediately before the election gets underway. And so here's what you do. I have put up on the site the Twitter handles for the 3 people most empowered to hold the Senate Intel Committee hearing that they promised months ago. Senator Schumer, Majority Leader, Chair of the Intel Committee, Warner, Ranking Member of the Intel Committee, Rubio. 3 men, as it happens, who have the power to call those hearings and change history. And so what you do is you Twitter tag them a message. You can't DM them because while almost every member of Congress has a Twitter account and a Twitter page, they do not have DM for the obvious reasons. Okay. So you Twitter tag them. What does that mean? Simple. At Senator Schumer, we love what you're doing, Senator. You're a hero. The legislation that you've put forward is fantastic, but we want that hearing that you promised in the Senate Intel Committee, and we want it in January. That's the key message. And of course, that's up on the site, shiftstorm.org.
We've
and
got that.
there's protocols there of how to do this. Here's one protocol. You can send the same message to all three of these senators. In other words, Twitter tag them. Don't send the same message over and over again to the same member. If you want to send them 10 messages, come up with 10 versions of it, and let's fill up their notification box. Now, what am I talking about? Some people don't know this. Some people have been on Twitter for years and don't know this. But when you tag somebody in a message, it goes in their notification box. And there are staffers in all of the offices in Congress who monitor that notification box.
That they do. Yep.
Because that's where their boss can find out what people are saying about them on Twitter. Okay?
Absolutely.
And so if we put 10, 15, 20,000 messages into that notification box, let me tell you, that staffer is going to go, hello. They're going to pick up the phone. They're going to call the chief of staff or the member and then saying, you need to check the notification box right away. And so, okay, thank you. Hangs up, brings up Twitter, goes to the notification box. And what does Senator Schumer, Warner, and Rubio see? Thousands of messages requesting politely but firmly, we want a hearing in January. Not halfway through the election from hell that's coming, but in January, before the first primary. We want it in January. Well, that is going to have an impact. And so everybody out there that's willing to do this could very much be the decision maker in terms of them deciding, okay, let's do it. The people are behind us. They want it. Let's do it. So that is the shiftstorm. Now, in addition, I have also put up their email box form, their email form. As it happens, all members of Congress now have email forms. They do not give out their email addresses with very few exceptions. And so you have to go through a form. One of the reasons they do that is to minimize email storms.
Yes,
you don't want email storms. And so the way it works is that if you are in the district of a member of Congress and you fill out your form that contains your message, if that address is not a legitimate address in that district, it doesn't go through. Guess what? It's the same for the Senate. And so Werner's in Virginia, Rubio's in Florida, and Schumer's in New York. And so when you fill out that form to send a nice email message, same thing. If the address is not a legitimate address in those states, it doesn't go through. I'm just mentioning this. Just saying. That's it.
Yeah, no, it's a good point.
So if it's got a legitimate address in New York, it goes through to Schumer. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So that's all I'm saying. And so the goal here is if we could get 10,000 email messages into the email boxes, as staffers then watch that. They're literally watching the emails coming into the box. If they see hundreds or thousands of messages turning up, they're going to notify their member and say, look, you need to check the email because we're getting a lot of email on this. And that's it. Do not send a letter. It is not worth the effort. And I don't publish their phone address. But I do say, look, if you want to go get it, make a call, but don't barrage them with calls. If we can get a limited number of people making a call, particularly if they're in their state, particularly if they know somebody on the staff, and saying, look, we really would like to have those hearings, that's okay. But this is not a phone call storm. It is a Twitter tag storm.
Yeah, I agree.
Add-on. Okay,
best way to go about it.
Yeah, and phone calls, that's harassment. Continuous phone calls, taking up the lines, it doesn't need to be done. And I think you're absolutely right. And I love this idea of tagging them. Anybody that's watching it, please do exactly what Steve is saying. I think it's a really nice way of getting that message across. And let's help Steve get this going, because
and as an example of how powerful the net is. for those that are not really up, and there are people that find out how powerful the net is the hard way. In other words, they just go about their business doing shit, and the internet is who cares about it? And then they do something, and the internet comes back at them and destroys their life overnight.
Yeah, man.
Okay. Internet is very powerful. It also has the power to take a teenager with a decent camera, a nice smile, and a kind of, style about them, and turn them into an influencer in a couple of years, give them 10 million followers, and put a couple of $1 million in their bank. That's how powerful it is. And so let me just make a suggestion here. I'm not on TikTok, but if somebody is kind of following a TikTok influencer out there, one of those kids that's got, 5-8 million followers, and just suggested to them, why don't you put up a little TikTok video where you're talking about the shift storm and how you'd really love to have some hearings, that may just put 100,000, tagging messages right there.
Good idea.
Steve, I would do it, but I'm not on TikTok and I'm far too old.
I could re-download it. I'll do it for Steve.
I think you're starting on the back foot there, I think, Tom. But no, I think you're right. Unfortunately, we are in the age of influencers. So if there are any influencers watching, could you use your influence for the power of good for once, rather than selling the latest jeans brand?
I'm not knocking influencers. I'm not knocking influencers. Let me tell you, a lot of them are fantastic. You've probably heard of the Beast. All I can say.
I love Mr. Beast, and he's great, and he does fantastic work.
I ate his candy bar yesterday, man.
Billions, and pretty much everything
he
makes
seems like
goes
a decent
back.
guy.
He still lives in a room in his studio. He's not spending his money.
Man.
He's giving it back, and I love that.
I'm just saying that he is the ultimate, what I would call the ultimate internet influencer. He is the summum bonum at this point. I'm going to tag, and I'm going to suggest. Look, I'm just
maybe we should all be tagging him.
Tag Mr. Beast. Look, if you like the idea of this Shift Summit, and you would like to see it here, go for it. And if he were to jump on it, it's ball game. And it's game over, right? We could get 1 million.
Or Logan Paul, even, because Logan Paul is already tied to this particular issue. He's obviously done some things with James Fox and such. No, I know. But if he cares about the issue, that's what really matters at the end of the day, right?
We've made great headway, and to get to the people, you attract the people like Mr. Beast, Joe Rogan, Tucker Carlson, these big players. The interview with Tucker Carlson went up, and 12 hours later, it'd been seen by like 2.5 million people.
Oh, it's
12
incredible.
hours. These are the people that we need to be getting involved in this conversation, because they then come with their followers, and with their followers then becomes the power of humanity. That goes back to what you were talking about earlier, Steve, that 20 people are ruling the world. Well, it's the power of influence that we can use for us, the people, to take back that control and get that influence back. Because 20 people do not represent us.
Yeah, let me make a distinction.
They're supposed to represent us. Sorry,
again, but Rogan and Carlson are basically journalists, okay?
Yeah.
Of a sort, entertainers, but certainly journalists, entertainers, and so they have a certain what's the word? They have a certain criteria as to what they can do or won't do. All right, and believe me, I'm not turning out. I mean, I long ago I did one of the earlier versions of Rogan when he had an earlier podcast, but I'm not hearing from these guys, and they are not calling me, I assure you. So, but I want to make a distinction here. When I talk about TikTok influencers, I'm talking about a whole different category. These younger people that have these huge followings, they have a very different set of criteria, right? So getting a Tucker Carlson to bring you on to interview so you can talk about your shift storm, that's not easy.
Yeah.
No,
but
it's very difficult.
A TikToker influencer could, hey, no problem, I'll do it, right? Yeah. I don't have the restraints on me. I don't have the issues. And so what I'm saying is that while all of this other stuff is important and I love to do it, the thing is that there's other power to the internet that we need to make sure we mine. And one of them is the young influencers. And so because the sheer numbers of their followers and because they know social media quite well. So when I say Twitter tagging to to an influencer, they know exactly what I'm talking about. They and I don't have to get on Tucker Carlson. I just get one influencer to go, yeah, this shitstorm thing, I'm liking it. They do a little video, right? And they, they have a little fun with it, and they and that goes out, and boom. So we're just the right influencer. And I may actually do this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to join TikTok, and I'm going to see if I can, identify.
Steve, we'll be there. We'll help you.
Yeah,
we'll do it.
I'll send
Right on.
I got nothing to lose. I got nothing, but I'm not going to become a TikToker. I'm not going to be doing those videos and stuff.
Steve, the benefit is twofold, because actually, I mean, even I can say this because I look at the analytics for our show. So our show goes out on YouTube, it now goes out on Rumble. We're on we're on Spotify for podcasters, all these places. I get analytics, and one of the key things that I always see is that nobody, and I mean nobody, watches our show that is below the age of 35. The younger generation just aren't interested, or they don't believe it, and we need to break through that.
It's not that they're not interested. They believe me. They go to the movies. They see there's nothing but alien movies. They've been to all that stuff. They've been to all. They understand the idea of extraterrestrials and all of that, and they're interested in the sense that that's cool, right? And like, man, when we get disclosure, that's going to be cool.
But I won't talk about it with my friends yet.
But the idea of joining an activist movement, no. They have lots to do, and they are kind of like me. Many years ago, I've said, well, when I was a teenager, I was reading, noting things about UFOs back then. There were articles that go all the way back to the 40s, and I'm like 15, 16. It's 19. It's the late 50s, and early 60s, and I'm seeing this UFO stuff, and I'm reading it. And I'm going, oh, yeah, that's extraterrestrial. Of course it is. Common sense said it was extraterrestrial. I had no bias, right? I had no biases of any kind, political, religious. I'm just reading this. But I'm kind of a science guy. I'm a math kid. I'm going, that's extra. When I read the Barney Hill article in Look magazine, I said, that's clearly extraterrestrial. And I'm thinking, well, one day the government's going to tell me about that. But the government didn't tell me about that. And so from 40 years go by, 40 years? Like I'm 16, 30, over 30 years go by, and the government still hasn't acknowledged it. And that's when I reached the age of 49 and go, damn, what the hell? And I decided I want to do something. I read John Mack's book, and I ended up getting into this because the government still hadn't told us about it. And now 26 later, they still haven't confirmed it. So I put myself in that sense, I put myself in the shoes of the Gen Zers right now and the younger millennials. And I get it. I mean, they're looking at this and saying, sure, it's obviously real, and the government's going to tell us about it. And I'm young, I got a life ahead of me. But don't assume there aren't younger people. There are younger people in this field. There's no question. They are. And some of them do have podcasts, and they're under 35. And there's some that are even younger than that. But in terms of a generation engaging it, no. And I don't blame them. And here's the last point I'll make about that. The world wars were fought by the greatest generation. God bless them. My father was one of them. He was at Guadalcanal. Thank God he was a medic and not an infantryman. He still never talked about the war because even as a medic, he saw stuff that he just didn't want to talk about. And so he never shared it with me. Okay. So that's greatest generation. The baby boomer generation, which is me, I am literally the baby boomer guy. I mean, I was literally born right after the bombs were dropped practically. And so the baby boomer generation is the generation that grew up and maintained the truth embargo. We were the one managing it, keeping it going, right? So if you were born in 46, by 76, you're 30 years old, you're probably a colonel at the Pentagon. And so the truth embargo was essentially initiated by the greatest generation in post World War II. And then the baby boomers, pretty much the ones that ran it for most of the last 76 years. And so it is not inappropriate and maybe the right thing that it's the baby boomer generation that fixes it. We managed it. We kept it going. So now it's our job to end it. And so I'm more than happy to participate there. And you'd be amazed at how many of my colleagues are around this age. They are the ones that are working the hardest to fix this. Some of them didn't make it. Stanton Friedman didn't make it. J. Allen Hynek didn't make it. So, but a lot of us have made it. And so I'm happy to end this on behalf of the Zoomers, right? The Zers, because we started it, we'll end it, and then they will live in the post-disclosure world. They're the ones that'll go to the stars, not me, and that's fine too. So I'm not worried about that. But again, the influencer, there's a difference between someone that's on the net a lot and an influencer, right? It's a difference between an influencer and a podcaster. A podcaster is kind of a journalist. They can get a certain size audience. There are certain limitations. Influencers are young people that have found a way to tap into the interest of other young people, right? The ones that are going to run this world pretty soon. And they've got a certain quality about them. They've got a certain skill, and they attract people to them, right? And they become influencers purely on the basis of the number of people following them. It's a very simple equation. If you have 100 people following you, you are not an influencer. I don't care what the hell you're doing. But if you've got 5 million, you're an influencer. And so the question is, and now that I've been talking about this in the last couple of weeks, is it's time to see what they're willing to do. And again, it's not join up. It's like, okay, I think I'll pass this on to my followers. All right, I think this is cool. I'll pass it on. Boom.
So, Steve, do us a favor, right? Because we'll clip this show afterwards and we can use it again. So, put it in a sentence for us. If you were to put a message out to an influencer out there, how would you engage with them to get this message out, and what would you say?
I would say this. If you like the idea of actually living at a time when we are part of a galactic federation, if the idea of having a completely non-nuclear weapon a planet where they're gone and it's no longer a threat, if you like the idea of moving in a direction where trillions of dollars are being spent on providing food, clothing, shelter, and water to every living person, and not tens of thousands of people sleeping in the street outside your door, then help us get this hearing in front of the Senate Intel Committee so the president can and confirm the extraterrestrial presence, and we can enter the post-disclosure world. If you like those things, that this could happen, and you could end up going to the stars one day. And the reason that you probably should at least give it a shot is because not of what you're going to miss if you don't give it a shot, but what could happen if you don't give it a shot. And instead of that world I just mentioned, we could have hell on earth. And so it's the difference between hell on earth and a whole new approach to being a human civilization, which may include engagement with extraterrestrials, as well as being able to travel to the stars. Or we can have hell on earth. And while I don't want you to lose sleep at night, worrying about a nuclear war, or worrying about an EMT, or dying in a terrorist attack, I don't want you to worry about that. Let us worry about that. But I just want you to, just as FYI, that's what's at stake here, right? There are people hell-bent to have that nuclear war, and there's people hell-bent to end this truth embargo and get into a post-disclosure world where that becomes something we can address, solve, fix. And so that's a long sentence, but that's what I would tell them.
Thank you very much. Well, I mean, it's been a heavy hour.
That it has.
It's Steve, this has been without doubt one of the best conversations we've had on the show, and I thank you from the bottom of my heart for your truth, your passion, your honesty, the hard work that you've put in the name of every single person watching this show and beyond, because that's what you've been doing, and you continue to do. Is there any way that people out here? What's the best way that people can support you in what you're doing, and in any way that is beneficial to you? How can the people watching this show benefit you and help you?
Well, here's the promos. Let me do the promos. By the way, do you all do Q&A? Do you have the ability to do Q&A on your podcast?
Absolutely. So if anybody's got a question for Steve, put it up in the chat right now, and we'll do that.
Well, I don't know about that. I mean,
well, okay.
but what I'm saying is, this is something I'm going to be doing now, because I've got lots more podcasts coming, but I haven't been doing it, and this is something now I'm going to start doing. Look, I know how long I can go on. I mean, I know. Everybody kind of knows that. They know that I am a passionate activist, and there are no short answers, and I can go on for hours. But really what I love doing is answering questions. And so what I would invite you to do is this: pick a time down the line, bring me on for just Q&A, right, from them. And I will not go into my long dialogues. I will answer questions as best close I can, and we'll do as many questions as possible. This is very important. We've got to engage people this way more, and I need to stop talking so much. So let's do one of those. Now, in terms of promos, follow me on Twitter, please. I've got 33,000 followers. That's fine. I need twice that many. I need you to follow me. But if you don't care, don't do it. But if you think about it, at Steve Bassett, all right, or Google, or you can Twitter search Paradigm Research Group. So follow me on Twitter. 2, participate in the Shiftstorm. Don't forget the F, shiftstorm.org. 3, I'm going to be speaking at the Conscious Life Expo coming up February 9, I believe.
Oh, fantastic.
We anticipate 25,000 people are going to be at the LAX Hilton, because, well, you know, excitement is high right now, and that's a major conference. But that's 200 speakers. It covers everything. Okay. But I'm also going to be speaking at the Contact in the Desert, and that starts May 30. Now, the Contact in the Desert is going to have twice as many people as last year, as it's really coming back strong. It's going to be in May. Things are going to happen. It could be a massive celebration. And it's the largest, I think, strictly UAP conference out there right now. It's at Indian Wells Resort. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this. And so please join me there. But and you're going to buy your tickets when you're going to buy your tickets. But let me make it clear. If you want to be at the Indian Wells Resort for that event, you have got to book your rooms now. Just book them now. Don't think about it. Just do it. If you want to book somewhere else, book them now, because the price is going to go up. Once you got your room booked, you're gold. And so that is coming up. Those are the 2 conferences that I'm looking to do. The other thing is, I'm working very closely with Danny Sheehan's think tank, New Paradigm Institute, which is a major think tank. I mean, it's going to have a board of advisors. It's like top tier, top men, top women. Hey, if you know somebody that's got a few million bucks, they need it. That's a huge think tank. So newparadigminstitute.org. The other thing is, I am about to finally, don't ask why it's taken so long. I don't want to go there. I'm going to convert Paradigm Research Group from a sole proprietor activist entity, me, to a think tank, a boutique think tank, small, 501(c)(3). I got to get a couple grand together. I'm going to file a legal Zoom and convert to a 501(c)(3) based in Washington. It will be a small think tank, but it will be able to do some things. Now, Danny's think tank's office is is 1 block. It's across the street from the Capitol. You can hit the Capitol with a 9-iron from his office. Mine is 2 blocks from the White House. I can hit the White House with a 3-wood. Now, I'm not going to do that because they don't like that, right? You use a 3-wood and send a golf ball into the White House area on the lawn there, and you get a visit, right?
Happy Gilmore.
They're going to want to know, what the hell are you doing? But so you kind of see where I'm going here. And so I am going to go full bore, tax-free donation, Patreon, all that kind of stuff. I'm not looking for funding now because it's not tax deductible. If anyone wants to fund me a little bit, yeah, I could use some. And that's paradigmresearchgroup.org. Go there. There's a whole page. No, I took the contribution page down. But the contact information is there, and my email is on Venmo, and it's on Zelle, and it's on whatever the hell it's all it's and PayPal, right? But I took the contribution page down. I want to put it back up once I am nonprofit. So that's coming. All right. And let's see, is there anything else? Oh, no. I think that's about it for now. I'm sure I've left something out. And then my website is paradigmresearchgroup.org. And oh yeah, if you go there, subscribe to my email up in the left corner, right? If you want to get updates from me, and I'm putting them out, and so forth. And so that's my promos, folks. That's all I got.
Steve, we're going to wrap the show up now, I think, because we've been on for a while. Stay on with us for a little bit, because I'd personally like to thank you after the show. But thank you so much for coming on. It's been one of the most engaging and enlightening conversations we've had in a while. And I thank you for your passion, your hard work, and your effort. And I'm sure everybody watching this does as well. So, Tom, over to you.
Steve, obviously we've spoken a couple of times before. It's just a pleasure to be able to do it again. You're one of my favorite people out here. I didn't think there was a better guest to really nail down what's really going on in Washington right now than you. And it's an honor. It's an honor. I've been a fan of yours for years. It's still crazy that I'm here talking to you. I still think about that, but I've gotten used to it. I'm not as shy anymore. But you're really, really over the target. And I think I speak for everybody in the chat here in saying that we humbly appreciate your efforts, especially over the last 26 years. We're all in this together, and you've really contributed a lot. And I personally thank you for that.
Yeah.
And since you brought that up, let me mention a couple quick things. One, I'm an activist, so I have an activist perspective on this. But there has been the rise of what I would call very much citizen journalism, which includes the podcast. And the quality is amazing. So you've got Ross Coulthard out there. Now he's at News Nation, right?
Yeah.
He's doing great journalism there.
Oh,
you've got Debrief, Micah Hanks, right?
Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. You've got Christopher Sharp that started up his own thing in the UK, Liberation Times, which
Fantastic.
By the way, dropped off of Google. It was getting picked up and referred to in Google alerts, and then completely disappeared. And I mentioned this to Chris. Whatever, he's got to do something so that his Liberation Times is turning up. And
Chris is a great guy. He's coming on the show in January as well. He's a good friend of the show.
And there's some others. You've got Billy Cox's Life in Jonestown blog. He's been writing on this subject now for 20 years. That's another. These are individuals doing very good journalism. You've got Stephanie, who started this thing called the Post-Apocalyptic Media. Impressive. You've got Mirador, which is Johnson, right? These are individual journalists creating their own sites, doing good journalism on this. So that's out there. Now that's journalists, and they're giving you the journalist perspective, right? And so these people, obviously, we need. We want people to support them as well.
100%.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. So until next time, from me and from Tom and from Steve today, thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you next time.
Ad Astra.